Yeah,
I saw Eddie walking in, so once he comes in, we can go ahead and get started, yeah. In the past, did Penny send a calendar invite for these? Alex, will you be sending a calendar invite for these?
I will be sending the calendar invite for all of those. I just wanted to make sure those dates work with everybody. The
I don't think
only,
we ever had a choice.
the only thing would be November is we pushed it back a week due to.
We have a choice this time.
veterans.
Yeah. No,
If she puts it black and white, then it's right there.
yeah. Once Eddie gets in, we'll get started.
Then it was just also a copy for all of you guys to have, so none of you could say that you didn't get a copy.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
He's in the corner there.
Oh, the green shirt.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna do your oath real quick.
Okay.
I'm Shanita. Nice to meet you.
Meet you.
If you want, just raise your right hand and then settle out.
Hi, Tommy, we're, take a picture of us, please. Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of Board of Park Commissioner in Wichita, Kansas, so help me God.
Eddie? All right.
Oh, you got a pin for me.
And
Find that one.
And mirror.
I appreciate it.
I got you. Preloaded.
Carol, send me that.
Of course. Thank you, Miss Shanita. You too.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and get started. Call this meeting to number 9 Park Board meeting to order. Tom, you have been sworn in, sir, cannot leave us. But we do have to approve our, because we do have a quorum, we did not have a quorum the previous meeting. We do have to approve the October and the November board meeting minutes. So I move to approve.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right. Motion passes. Okay, new items for consideration. Tim, would you like to join us up front for the quarterly update?
We need to do November as well, even though it's.
Oh, do I need a separate thing or? I said both meetings.
Oh, I said both.
That's fine. Okay.
Group however many you wanted, but yeah.
All right. Great. Oh, you're okay. Tim, now you're upset.
Tim Kellums, Public Works and Utilities Engineering, here to talk about the CIP update. Seems like we were just here. It seems like I always say that too. So we have all this information on the website, kind of giving you an update on kind of where we are. The spreadsheet that you have in front of you is pretty much the same information that we have up here. It's just easier in a spreadsheet to kind of understand and read all that stuff. The items that have, that are bold and underlined, those are titles that we've made changes to. They may be something as, changing the start date or end date, or we may be changing a description in there or something like that. So it doesn't mean that something totally has changed completely on a project. It may just be something like a description or start date or end dates or things like that. So a good way to get to that would be going to department. You can go over here to Park and Recreation. And you go to the About Us. And then the Capital Improvement Program. And so, again, those we categorize them into 5 different categories: identified, initiated, scheduled, in progress, and completed. Identified have not been initiated by City Council yet. They have been identified in the 2025, generally 2025 CIP. Scheduled means that they are kind of in the works, they're under design, or they are in the process of getting started construction wise. In progress is when we generally consider when they're under construction. So they may be sitting unscheduled for a little while, but in progress, which we call construction is ongoing, and then completed, obviously, when the project gets completed. We are going to City Council tomorrow to initiate a couple items. So they will now be going into the initiated category here soon, but they have not been initiated yet. One of those is the 2025 athletic field renovation. One of our biggest assets, and I guess you consider infrastructure that we have, are bleachers throughout the park system. They do take a lot of effort to maintain them, and they do take a lot of funds to go replace them because they are mostly metal. They do have, sometimes they end up breaking. We make sure that they're as safe as we can have them. The different higher bleachers you get, the more seating and railings and things like that. So want to make sure we're providing a safe atmosphere at athletic field. So that's what that project is being taken to City Council, proposing that there's something for that. Athletic courts is another one. Burdock, Kiwanis, and Cessna Parks. Plan there is to enhance those basketball courts. We do a annual evaluation of athletic courts. In these 3, I think we're at the very top. I think there may be one other one in there, but we try to distribute some of the improvements across the different districts, especially when we're doing something such as basketball courts, where it's pretty easy to kind of distribute that in one package. So that's kind of our plan for 2025 athletic courts. We're using a different system to build athletic courts. We are utilizing post-tension courts, which basically means they are tied and held together a lot better. A lot of the ones that we have now are asphalt, and asphalt just doesn't hold up. So right now we're trying to kind of take those down and get those replaced so that we have longer lasting courts in our system. Crystal Prairie Lake Park, we're planning on taking that to City Council to initiate that sometime in January. So that'll be initiated and ongoing, or not ongoing, scheduled by the time I come back to you. Kind of scrolling down here, the next thing that we plan to initiate soon, facilities generally takes park facility maintenance, considering that's usually rec centers or different assets or structures that we have throughout the park system. The biggest thing that we're working on right now is replacing the roof at Orchard. We plan to utilize some of previous funding to help do the improvements for Orchard, and then utilize 2025 where we, as much as we can, for Evergreen Rec Center, and then Boston has flooring that we want to replace over there. 2025 playground, that is one of the ones that we plan to initiate tomorrow. We plan to utilize some of the money to repair former police servicing over at Evergreen. That playground gets a lot of use over there. It's right next to the rec center. There's the basketball courts right there. It gets a lot of use. The PIP needs to get replaced over there. But while we're trying to maintain PIP, we're also trying to get all the sand playgrounds out of our system because they're just not as, they just don't hold up as well. Walking on them is not as good as the safety servicing that we have now or engineered wood fiber. They just don't. Sand playgrounds are kind of a thing of the past. So we're trying to upgrade our system and get that kind of flushed out. So one of the ones is at Central Riverside, which is there's a beautiful park, but we're wanting to utilize some funding from 2025 and 2026. We're going to hang on to that for a little bit to do something over there to take that same playground out. It's a 2 to 5 year old playground. And we want to do something special over Central Riverside. We think it's warranted over there. Trying to kind of create a hub or central place that, a lot of people go to for a variety of different reasons. So having a good playground over there, we think is important. The next one I'll note that we plan on initiating tomorrow is the 2025 walking paths. That is to supplement a land water conservation fund grant for Chisholm Creek Park North and add a walking path over at Sycamore Park. If you're familiar, a while ago we took out the tennis courts over at Sycamore. They were old and aging, and we have quite a bit of tennis courts in our system. So we felt that wasn't getting a whole lot of use, and that another use would be better in that park, such as a walking path, which through a survey in 2022, we found that walking paths, everyone loves walking paths. Everyone can use walking paths. That, it's just hit a lot of different demographics in terms of improvements in value for walking paths. So we feel that that's a good use over there at Sycamore. So that's the plan. Chisholm Creek Park North is under design. We're using some funding from a previous year to help get that going, kickstart that design process. So that'll be sometime early next year is when you start to see construction over there at Chisholm Creek Park North. In terms of initiated, as I kind of mentioned, kind of see this wave projects get flushed through, and then another wave kind of comes through. So this is the tail end of the kind of the 2024 wave here. Pawnee Prairie Park, there's quite a bit of discussions going on there. Building that's out there right now is not in great condition. So we're evaluating different uses for the park. I don't think anything's been 100% settled on now, but kind of hanging on to this until we're ready to have a solid plan moving forward. Which I think we'll come back here to this body to kind of discuss and talk about that whenever something's kind of been flushed out a little bit more. 2024 park signage, that's something that we plan on getting into the schedule here soon. Taking a look at some of the list of things that we need to hit here. But that one's kind of been a little bit on the tail end of our projects so far. Scheduled Park Wetlands Playground. This one's really exciting. We just got proposals in for this one last Friday. We got 6 submissions. Some are a little bit better than others, but we'll see how the staff screening selection committee feels about them. So we'll go through a committee, shortlist it down, and then do interviews to figure out who we want to go with. It's a design build project. So once we have someone selected, they'll be off and running. And this one, again, is meant to be, it's funded through a grant, but it's also meant to be educational, try to provide something unique at the wetlands that's there. We don't have those all over the place, but trying to make sure that we capitalize on the ecological value there. That's important. As I mentioned earlier, that we utilize some existing funding for walking paths. This is the funding that we're targeting here in 2020. Some things to note. We split park facility enhancements into 2 projects right now, and that's how we're planning on moving forward for at least for right now. I kind of called it the East River Bank, but it's basically around the Keeper parking lot. That most of the landscape over there's quite a bit of erosion. There's a lot of erosion and silt that comes down onto the trail, which is a bit of a safety hazard, having just a whole bunch of soil right there coming together on top of a sidewalk. And also given that's right next to the keeper, we want to make sure that that's a nice, and pleasant environment over there. So plan on using some funds to help improve that area and then also, retaining walls throughout 3 parks. Let's see. Some other ones to note on in progress. This is kind of where a good chunk of our projects are right now. So I'll try to go through these pretty quick here. As I mentioned, the Orchard Rec Center, that one was bid out and we have a design, or we have the construction firm Buckley Roofing on that one. So that will be getting underway. I believe they had the pre-construction meeting earlier, maybe it was last week, for that one. So that will be ongoing here. McAdams, doing improvements over to the Carl Cruz Stouty tennis facility over there. It's shaping up pretty nice. That one's getting close to being wrapped up, so I'll get to be completed here soon. Downtown restrooms and hydration stations, as I'm sure you all know, that got approved by City Council, so we'll be moving forward with restrooms at NASCAR and A. Price Woodard. There'll also be a drinking fountain over at A. Price Woodard as well. Some improvements that we had to make to some leaks over at Osage and Fairmount Park at the splash pad. Those are complete, just really need to finish up the paint on top of them, make them look nice, and then they'll be ready for next year. Aquatic facility improvement. This is doing improvements at some of the, at the different, some of them splash pads, some of the pools. One of the things that we're looking at is a chemical storage facility, a centralized chemical storage facility. We've kind of targeted, or we have targeted South Lakes to put that there next to one of the existing maintenance buildings. That seems like a pretty logical solution. There's people there, there's workers that'll be there, have eyes on it. And South Lakes is a pretty, generally safe location. Country Acres, dog park, that one's under construction right now. I just poured the parking lot there, so that should be wrapping up early next year. Canine Rooster Dog Park at Meridian Park, that one, have some minor items that we're still kind of wrapping up on that one. Kind of really right now, just trying to wait for the grass to grow, try to make sure it's established as possible. I think we haven't solidified on an opening date, but that's something that we're actively working on and discussing together to figure out a good time to open Canine Rooster. LW Clap, there's a lot going on at LW Clap. They just poured the concrete base for the playground over there. It is a massive playground. It's really pretty neat, unlike anything we have in the park system. The dog park is going well too, pretty much done. Parking lot been asphalt's been put in, fences are up. That dog park is pretty close to being done and wrapped up. Right now, we have them focusing on doing the trail work out there at Clap, trying to make sure we get those connections put in. We're gonna have to wait until the springtime to get the safety surfacing in. The weather just isn't, we need probably about 10 to 15 days of 40-degree temperature and rising, and we just don't think that we're gonna stay that lucky for 10 to 15 days. So that's a little unfortunate, but that means for a fun spring ribbon cutting and getting kids out there, especially after a winter. McAdams Brewer Community Facility, that one's ongoing right now. Construction is moving forward. I think most of the work right now is focusing on the existing facility, but they are still working on the new expansion to that. Lake Field renovation, this one targeted putting up a scoreboard over at Barry Sanders Field. That I believe should be up. I haven't been out there today, but I think that got up last week. If not, I'll be up in the next couple of days. Park Wetland Phase 3, that should be complete here early next year. I think they're targeting January to put in the boardwalk. They have the helical piers there in the ground right now. Edgemore is pretty much done. Finally got trellises up there. It looks really nice. If you haven't been over to Edgemore, that whole plaza looks completely different than what it was a year ago. So I highly recommend that you go over to Edgemore and check that out when you have a chance. I guess I'll hit on Crystal Prairie Lake here, since that's one that'll be coming up here soon, since we're going to be planning to initiate some of that funding here soon. Again, the plan there is phase 1 is to go ahead and put a trail of Hoover and start activating the park a little bit more, put in a gravel parking lot there, start getting people in. There was almost over 6,500 catfish were stocked in the lake about a month ago. And their Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks is actively helping stock that lake. So it should be a great spot for fishermen and people that want to get out there and be close to the lake. Then completed, I think we only have one new addition to completed. That would be the athletic field renovation. We have new lights up over at Robert Thurman Field. They look great. From what I've been told, we have a new, it's LED, so it's definitely far more energy efficient. For one, there's less bulbs out there. We went from 8 to 6, so there's less, looks a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner out there. We also are utilizing a remote system. So instead of having to have staff go out there till 11 p.m., wait for the games to be done to go out there just to flip the lights off, we can now do that remotely and set it on a timer. So that makes things a lot more efficient for us and a lot better for the way that we are conducting business. So that was kind of a lot. I'll stand for any questions if you have any.
Tim? Got a question?
Yes. Noticed on there, a lot of projects, and I was wondering where in the list is the roof for the College Hill pool facility there? It's been on the list for what now? 11 years, 12, and it's gone from a $1,500 repair to about a $80,000 repair. And I just wonder where it was in the list to be done.
Sure, yeah, we're utilizing the aquatic facility money for that. I know it's on our facilities team. I know that they are looking at it. I think there's some concerns knowing that it is kind of the tile roof, going in there and taking those repairs versus just having standard old roofs that we have in all of our other facilities. So I think they're taking a little bit of time to look into that a little bit more to make sure that it is, knowing that it is in a historical area, making sure that we are keeping things up to code and what the Historic Preservation Board is asking for, or the Historical Preservation Board is asking of us to do. I'm not intimate with that. I don't know, Reggie, if you have any more information, but I'm not sure where that's at, but I know it's on their radar. We have funding out to do improvement.
Well, it's a Spanish tile roof, which is very common in Wichita, so that's really not an issue. Whether it should be specialized or not. So what, like I said, where does it stand on the list of after 10, 12 years now?
Director could.
I'll give a little insight on it. So we did get the funding that came through this year of what we're going to do for improvements for the actual pools itself. Our team is actually meeting upstairs now, looking at the list that we're looking at for repairs. So after that meeting, we'll have an idea where it is on the list, and I can give you an update on it. So one of the challenges that we have with that is that, like Tim mentioned, that we had to go to the historical registry for making those improvements. So we were able to do some improvements around the outside of the building into the trim and things that are there. And now that we have the funding, we'll be able to address those other items.
Well, the trim thing I'm aware of, and it was a stopgap because they use pine, and I guess from what I understand, the wood specifically used there. I would guess that's another suggestion, is that I got yelled at because I'm a former city inspector, and the people that were sent out there were not supervised, and basically it was I wouldn't pay for it, let's put it that way. Quality of work and the workmanship that they did, they wouldn't have gotten any of my money, but it's up there and it's painted. It was on the list at some point.
Well, thanks for sharing it. When we went through that process, we actually had to go out to bid and use those vendors that were on our list of approved providers. And that's who was awarded that particular contract. So as we move forward to make some of the major repairs, we'll definitely take in consideration, the quality of the work and things that we do moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. All right. We've got a second item of consideration. Well, do we wanna, talk about, Aaron's sign for?
Miss Fry, right?
She's in.
She was, but never mind. You know,
Yours? Okay. Awesome. Well, the previous, sorry, thank you, I couldn't see you. At the November meeting, we received, would you mind sharing again one more time so that we could, vote on your,
Just share the whole presentation or?
just a brief overview because I'm gonna butcher it.
Oh. Yeah, you want me? Okay.
I wanna make sure we don't miss that before we get to land management best practice. Oh, that's all right, Alex.
that was fine.
What's yours?
So just kind of a brief overview about what this is going for is the dedication for Terry Fry for his work and time and efforts that he's done on kind of implementing the park, maintaining it at a number of years. So that's what's about some of the history with Irene Plumley, who got the city to create the trails and some of the dedications out there for her. And this is a large stone base that's out there now. This is photos of my dad and myself back in, I'm believing that's about 84 out at Pawnee Prairie. And then when we organized a ride there, the last big ride I organized out there was, I think, the 2016, and we had about 60 riders. And then just some photos of him out riding the trails and the work he's done. He's actually out last weekend and the weekend before doing maintenance out there. So this is kind of the idea of what I'm proposing, some sort of steel structure. I'm actually looking at probably a 10-foot wide is I think maybe a little better than with the middle post. So three posts to go into the ground, and then the tree, as I mentioned before. And then this is kind of the plan for the dedication to put it off the south entrance off of Tyler. And then I don't know if they put it on here.
So yeah, they're printed out for everybody. So they have the talk above the plaque and then the actual dedication that.
Yes, yeah. So there's a couple other things I just did a little more work on since the last meeting to get a little more finalized for what the specs would look like a little bit more so than what I had before. So that is kind of it in a nutshell.
Nate, because we're not renaming a park or anything like that, are we, what's the appropriate recommendation?
And it's still naming.
Okay.
So the park board would be the entity, like the naming.
Yeah.
It's like with everything else, but it's not a street. Something else that's named, but it is a recommendation to city council to name, like with the others.
Are we calling this like a trailhead or
It's maybe a little outside my purview exactly, but I think maybe.
Hitching post.
Yeah. Perfect. But kind of up to you all, I think, would be how you want to name it in that regard.
I think it'll probably be most appropriate just to specify the specific item itself, because the trail already has a name,
Okay.
so it won't be confusing.
That's right, okay.
And we can just identify that as what you're recommending, and then we could take it back to council.
Thank you, Reggie.
So I have a question maybe for you and maybe for Tim, but I was in that parking lot the other day and there's a lot of mud and it's not even. Is this part of parking lot maintenance? I mean, leveling and gravel and anything else? Do you have any problem with mud over there? Because the reason I was there was because there was a lot of birds that were in the mud hole, which was right.
Yeah, it's kind of an uneven.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll get pretty muddy. We prefer not to park on the asphalt concrete area for horses slipping on that, getting in and out of trailers. So, but yeah, it'll tend to get muddy, but it's dirt. So Does it?
How do we improve that? How do we put that on the list? That's not part of this.
That's not a part of this, no,
Right.
that's a,
That's part of, Pawnee Prairie improvement.
yes.
Just putting it out there.
Oh, great question, Tom, or great note. Well, I guess I'll make a motion then that we, name this plaque in memory of Theron Terry E. Fry.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. More questions? Conversation? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Passes.
Okay, great, thank you very much. And then just get with me, or Katie will get with me on that. Okay, great. All right, well, thank you guys for your time again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
All right, Warren. Warren with land management best practices. Warren McCoskey. Thank you, sir.
So last spring, well, I'm Warren Wichita, Park and Recreation Maintenance Supervisor. And it's not even full, so I hope my voice holds out. Lots of good. Last spring, I was invited to attend the National Land Management Seminar, hosted in northeastern New Mexico, hosted by the Vermejo Park Ranch, the Chase Ranch, and Philmont Scout Ranch. Vermejo is Ted Turner's very small, 575,000 acre bison ranch in northeastern New Mexico. Spent a day touring that, the Chase Ranch, and then Philmont. If you're familiar with that part of the country, where the Whittington Center right south of Matone ends, to about 12 miles south of Cimarron, these three ranches own all. It's a huge tract of land out there. Had a number of speakers that spoke there. There were 40 individuals that were invited. I was the only municipal land manager that was invited. So I was felt very honored to attend. They brought subject matter experts in from all over the country. There were speakers from Vermejo, from Oklahoma State, New Mexico State, New Mexico Forest Service, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Johnny Morris Conservation Trust, which if you bought anything at Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop, Mr. Morris took 1.4 billion with a B and endowed it for conservation uses in North America. U.S. Geological Survey, U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and also folks from the ZBAR, which is another Ted Turner project right west of Medicine Lodge. They covered all sorts of things from woody encroachment, which we'll focus on today, to backcountry road building, restoration of riparian habitats. That center picture is looking at an area on the Vermejo that burned by wildfire back last spring. And they were saying how wonderful it is because New Mexico, unlike Kansas, does not have a prescribed fire law. If you get a fire, they have to put it out by state law. So they couldn't believe what we're able to do in Kansas with prescribed burning because it's just not their paradigm. But the entire week was really focused on breaking false paradigms and things that we have been taught. I mean, I have an ag degree from K-State and things that I was taught, and current research is showing that as they actually do research and just not take what everybody's always said, things aren't always the way we think they are. Part of what we did was we looked at where trees belong and where trees don't belong. On the Vermejo, this is a huge area that they are restoring, a highly erodible part of their ranch. and planting appropriate trees along the Bermejo River. And you see the giant elk-proof fence. They have to keep the elk off of the vegetation if they want to get that river stabilized. And it's just amazing the work that they've been able to do. And they're operating this property at a profit. After the 3 previous owners had ran it in, huge amounts of cattle and all of them went broke. So they converted it to bison and hunting and guest ranch. I guess dude ranch is no longer a acceptable term. But what I want to focus on today is some of the things that I looked at on grasslands, which here we are, Wichita, Kansas, right in the middle of a huge grassland. And don't get me wrong, there are places here in Wichita, Kansas where things are appropriate. Our agency spends a lot of effort planting trees, maintaining trees, in our general recreation parks and along our streets, and around people's houses. There are great places, but we're also, a fairly major landholder and land management agency. And they went back and looked, where did the tree planting culture on the Great Plains really come from? And it goes all the way back to what's called the Timber Culture Act, which a lot of us think of as the Homestead Act, but you're taking people from the Ohio Valley, New England, Virginia Piedmont, moving them west, and they all grew up in forests. And you just put them out on grassland and, oh my, there's no trees. So that original law from 1873 said that 40 acres for every 160-acre grant on the homestead had to be in trees, and the trees spaced at 12 feet apart or less in that 40 acres. Then in 1878, they realized that was pretty unrealistic and took that down to only 10 acres. But it still was planting lots of trees, 2,700 acres per 10-acre plot. And then, of course, there were other things. Fast forward 150 years, and we haven't necessarily always made really good choices on what we plant. We introduced things that maybe weren't appropriate, and then maybe there's things that are already here that have been restricted, and all of a sudden we turn them loose. A good example of that is eastern red cedar, but this slide shows woody encroachment on the Great Plains, from the green colors being very lightly encroached or non-encroached, and the reds are severe encroachment. And I was shocked when I realized the dates on this slide. The left slide, I don't know if my cat toy is right enough to, it's really not showing up. Laser pointers doesn't have oomph. Is 1990 to 2020. It's a 30-year change. And you can see the red globs have gotten much, much larger. And then looking at the Great Plains, and in the Great Plains, we are right in the middle of what's considered the central southern mixed grass prairie, and what was historically there in before the Homestead Act. 74% of that grassland is gone. Now, some of those built houses on it. Some of it is highways and industrial parks, which, is understandable. But you don't have to drive very far out of Wichita, and you can see former agricultural land that is now just nothing but jungle of undesirable brush and small trees and eastern red cedars. The Texas blackland prairie there in eastern Texas is 89% gone, and the western coastal grasslands 93%. Up in the Sand Hills and in the Flint Hills, those areas are doing a little better. Both of those areas have very aggressive prescribed fire programs. The encroachment stuff was very interesting on what's vulnerable. I included in your packet today a multi-page, it was a flip book that was produced by the Grasslands Coalition that really takes a lot of this information into some pretty good detail. It's like there's 9 universities and then several non-governmental organizations that participated in that. I guess they printed 5,000 of those in 2023, expecting that to be a 5 to 10 year supply. And in 3 months, they were out of the flip books. So there was definitely demand for this information. One of the things I say, they were breaking paradigms. And one of the presenters was Dr. Laura Goodman from Oklahoma State, who a lot of the stuff in that handout is based on her research. And boy, oh my God, I wasn't one of her grad students, because what they did was they cleared several acres of prairie from all woody vegetation, and they left one 6-year-old eastern red cedar out in the middle of it, female. And at 6 years old, an eastern red cedar is between 48 and 60 inches high. It's not very big, not big. And that's when they start producing berries. And then when a bird would come and eat a berry, the grad students would chase down how far that berry stayed in the bird's system until they did what birds do with things that they eat. And they found that 95% of those seeds got dispersed, I guess it's a polite way, within 200 yards of that tree, which basically means for every eastern red cedar you have out there, you are contaminating 26 acres of grassland. And that was just kind of just really changed my way of looking at things. And then when you've got thousands and thousands of eastern red cedars, and looking at how the prairie gets converted, it starts with dispersal, and then things get going, and then it takes over and changes the state of how that land is actually used. Then looked at, okay, well, how do you manage this? Well, this is another paradigm that was broken when you look at, well, where does we attack this issue? And the cheapest place to attack the issue is you start on the intact grasslands and keep encroachment from starting. And once you get that under control, you go to where it's just starting to be encroached and you work up, because as you work into the higher areas of encroachment or even infestation or transition to woodland, that's where it gets horribly expensive. The low hanging fruit is where you don't have a problem yet. Excuse me. So this slide talks about where have we normally said, hey, we've got a problem, where are we going to address that? And my lack of a pointer, normally what we would do, and our agency is guilty as everybody else, is you go where you've got a whole bunch of cedars that is infested and start wiping them out there. Well, yes, that helps with the issue, but it's very expensive, and for your labor, you don't get as much ground treated and you aren't stopping the encroachment. What they would recommend in an area like this is you get a burning regimen on the area in front where you don't have a problem yet. And from there, you start going and taking out the encroaching cedars in the area where you have few cedars before you go to the area that is heavily encroached. Same on this area here. Normally we go to that area up there on the upper left and go after all those trees. They're saying, no, you really need to spend your time out here where you got a few babies to keep it from being taken over all over the place. Once again, a little different information, same slide. You start with a low hanging fruit, work your way out. And then
looking at this slide, what do you have? Is it mostly intact? Is it mostly contaminated? Is it mostly infested? Sorry. The reality is it's all three. You've got the cedars growing all over the place. You've got an area that looks pretty good, but if you went out there and walked around it, you got a whole bunch of baby cedars out there. And then you have intact grasslands. And this is a situation where prescribed fire would be very appropriate, and we have places within our park system where prescribed fire is necessary. One of the paradigms that they broke that week that just took me a while for my brain to get around was, I was taught, and I'm sure several of us were taught, that here in the southern Great Plains, we have deep, rich soils, high amounts of carbon stored in those soils, lots of organic matter. And the reason that exists is because it's been grasslands forever, and grasses have deep roots. And those roots break down, they die, they break down, have organic matter, and that's why we have such great soils. Well, Dr. John Weir, who's a prescribed fire specialist at Oklahoma State, actually has done molecular research on the Great Plains soil from all over the region, and has found that of that carbon and organic matter that's in Great Plains soils, 70% of it is partially combusted plant matter. So it's not so much the grasses, 30% of it's from the grasses, but that partially combusted plant matter is the fact that every inch of the Great Plains burned on a 3 to 5 year cycle before by expansion that fire bad, build fires out. They've actually went back and looked at soil samples from Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, K-State, Nebraska, and the Dakotas, and have seen that compared to the 1860s and 1870s, soil qualities have actually declined over from that time until now because of the suppression of fire. The organic matter is not being added to the soil because of fire suppression. Then they spent about half a day talking about windbreaks. And yet again, another paradigm that's just, here we have an area that we have windbreaks and, planted eastern red cedars. Kansas Forest Service, when I was in school, worked at the Forest Service nursery, we sold gajillions of eastern red cedars for windbreak and shelter belt use. And has perpetuated the problem because they send out females and males, lots of seeds getting sent out, and the birds carrying around and plant cedars all over the place. Basically, in the 1930s, there was the Dust Bowl, the way agriculture was, we did one crop per field per year. Every inch of it was plowed up, and from the time that it was harvested until it was planted again the next season, it was bare, stripped soil. The shelter belts were put in to break the wind and keep that soil in place. Well, modern agriculture for the past 40 plus years has moved hugely to no-till. Also, this conservation reserve projects in the 80s have pulled lots of marginal land out and restored that to seeded, restored grassland-like areas, but we left the shelter belts in. And what has happened is if you have a grassland or restored grassland, there's no benefit to having those shelter belts there. All it's doing is providing an inoculum source for spreading those seeds and chewing up more of the grasslands. One of the things that the folks from the Z-Bar Ranch talked about was their ranch completely burned over in the Anderson Creek fire in 2017. And they had millions, literally, of dead cedar trees standing. And one of the first things that they did was, well, they were very happy that, A, they didn't lose all their livestock, which a lot of ranches out there did. But number two was they realized they needed to get those skeletons of burned up cedars down flat on the ground. Because, and I've seen this, and you think about it, that skeleton, you said 95% of the birds deposit those seeds within 200 yards. Well, then you have 5% that they carry around for a while. Well, they land someplace. You got a nice naked cedar tree standing out there. Great place to stand and finish the seed process. Kick that seed out. You see a dead tree out in the middle of the pasture. What do you see around the bottom? A whole bunch of cedar trees. So they spent huge amounts of time knocking down all these cedar trees. So there wasn't a place for the birds to perch. You see the same thing on fence lines on pasture land where along the fences, the cedars come up. That's where the birds stop. It gets the perching stop. Looking at some of the things that we have done within this agency, up until 2018, we had a really aggressive try fire program. It was really difficult for us in 2018 and 2019 with the Anderson Creek and the Starbuck fire to put fire on the ground when the news programs had at least half their time dedicated showing piles of dead cattle across roads from those two wildfires. Then we had the pandemic. And we were recommended to not burn during the pandemic, being didn't know exactly what the pandemic was, and it was respiratory. We didn't want to put particulates in the air. And we had a lot of staff turnover in that time as well. We really need to get back to burning some of our parks. Pawnee Prairie and Chisholm Creek are two of our parks that we have. Pawnee Prairie was acquired not only for the horse purposes with Mrs. Public, who I grew up riding with, and she was crazy. But also because of the prairie opportunities there. In Chisholm Creek, huge amounts of that park were restored in the 80s to prairie, where it had been broken farmland. One of the things that is very interesting is spring is not always the right time to burn. We think spring's when we burn because that's when the beef producers in the Flint Hills burn. They're going after that flush of green growth right after things green up because they're trying to put weight on cattle. They aren't necessarily concerned with noxious weed control or trying to make the prairie as diverse as the prairie has historically been, because they're after feeding cattle and they're after weight gain. It's economic for them. One of the things that Dr. Weir of Home State has done is if you can get the cambium layer of a woody plant up to 142 degrees Fahrenheit, you will instantaneously kill it. So when you are burning in the spring, when it's 35 to 40 degrees, you either have to get it to 125 degrees for 10 minutes, or if you get it to 142 instantaneously, that's great. But that's a bigger task because you've got more of a temperature delta from what your air temperature is to getting it up there so you can actually cause death. If you're burning late season, which is the recommendation for controlling Serratia listedeza, if you're already at 95 to 100 degrees, you've got a much smaller area, and you get the added benefit of controlling woody plants as well. So I found that pretty fascinating. There's areas that we have not been able to burn. Mowing's not burning, but mowing every few years, and sometimes mowing every year, it keeps the woodies out, or at least keeps them suppressed. There's places we used to burn that due to housing developments, we no longer can put smoke onto the areas we used to put smoke on. So an example of that is out of Swanson Park. It was prairie when we acquired the property, or the area around it were, and then it's all housing developments now, and the housing developments, we really don't want to put large amounts of smoke into them because it makes it grumpy. there's times when the trees are too big. You know, I talked about that 6-year-old tree. If you run a fire through eastern red cedar, they're 48 inches or less, you will kill every one of them. Once they get over 48 inches, every inch they get taller, your percentages go down. On the left is our bobcat mounted masticator that we have had since 2013. And this is it eating eastern red cedar in Pawnee Prairie Park. And then on the right is our mantis, which mounts multiple different heads. And that is it out working eastern red cedar at Chisholm Creek Park. One of the nice things about eastern red cedars is once you grind them down, they don't sprout back. So you cut them off, they're done, and we are able to leave it in place, and it decomposes and returns the nutrients to the soil. We don't have to haul it all off. Using a shear, we have to take it all to the landfill, and that just becomes economically impossible. These two slides are looking at Pawnee Prairie. It looks like one slide is actually two slides. You've got on the left a slide from 2012, 2013, and then on the right, the same areas. And if you'll notice, this area here versus this area here, and this area here versus this area here, where the property was acquired, you know, there in the 70s and was ignored until the 2010s. Eastern red cedars have pretty much taken that area over. We work with Forest Service and their ecologists saying that monoculture was worthless to wildlife and was nothing but a huge fire hazard to the neighborhood that was adjacent to it. So we masticated all that area. And then here's the same area in 2023. We still have pretty good cedar encroachment. Actually, it's converted to monoculture in this area here that we'd like to get controlled. It's a matter of manpower and keeping equipment up to make that happen. Then out in the Chisholm Creek area, stepping those down 2010, 2019, and then 2022-ish. When we learned at Pawnee Prairie, when we started masticating eastern red cedar, even though they really didn't belong there, the numbers that they were there, we started getting citizen complaints saying you are destroying the farm. And they really didn't understand where we were going and what was going to be the outcome. It's a really nice prairie area now in those areas where we masticated. Is that fair? So we tried something a little different out at Chisholm Creek, because we took this area north of the parking lot, and we started in the middle instead of starting at the edge. And we cut a hole in the middle, and then we cut some crisscrosses, because the fire department's like, if this ever gets on fire, ain't no way we're going to stop. So give it a little bit of places for them to make a stand if it did catch on fire. And then we just kept making the hole in the middle bigger. And we're now at the point, this area was taken before the work last winter, that we basically have a 2-tree wide band all around the outside. And we've got a really nice prairie chunk that we have done no restoration other than making trees go away. Prairie plants are still there. They come right back, and we'll take that 2-tree wide band down this winter and instant prairie that nobody knew was there. So we've gotten very few complaints about the work we've done there. An awful lot of these slides I took right out of the handout that I gave you. Just wanted to acknowledge that it's not my work. I'm not nearly that sharp. But all the other universities and then the non-government organizations. And then just a plug for Northeast New Mexico. If you ever get down that way, there is a hole in the wall hotel / cafe on the southern edge of Raton, the Oasis Motor Lodge. And for $7, it is a stuffed sopapilla in Christmas style, red and green chili gravy. And I'm sorry. I take that over a filet mignon. It is phenomenal. So, thank you. I'd be happy to ask any questions.
Sorry, why is it not economically better to, kill the trees through ringing or girdling or something than it is to just like shred them to pieces?
If you leave them standing,
Like just,
yeah, it's called girdling. And in eastern red cedar in particular, they are a very high volatile oil containing tree, and they are exceedingly flammable. We have to be very careful when we are using our trucks, especially our spray trucks for suppression during prescribed burning, because if you get too close to cedars going up, we have melted fenders, mirrors, tanks on trucks because of the radiant heat they put off. If you do that, it creates an incredible fire hazard, and Ms. Snow and her staff would not be very happy with this.
My second question is that, is the reason why there is this much like fire hazard towards them is because they're allelopathic? Is it because they inhibit the growth around them?
They are just very prolific. And, without the forces that created the Great Plains, which is regular fire intervals, and then bison, which were here by the billions, hundreds of millions, we've excluded that. And the eastern red cedar, which historically going, back to the 1860s and 70s, was pretty much restricted to rocky scree areas where fire wouldn't carry. And instead of being on those rocky slopes, you remove those impediments away from them, and they just go crazy. And you walk away from active land management on prairie site here in South Central Kansas for 10 years, and you've gone from prairie to just a solid standing sort of cedar.
Warren, I appreciate what you've had to say here, especially like this one, but I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do continue out at Pawnee Prairie. I've been concerned there because of the encroachment, especially the area where that new bridle or the station is going to be. That area has got a lot of elms and Bradford pears.
Right, we
And
last burned that in the summer of 18,
yeah,
and
it's just really coming back.
it needs to burn really bad.
What I noticed at Chisholm Creek was where you mowed, it didn't get the dogwood. I mean, the dogwood is coming back.
Yes,
It's the second choice. I mean,
mowing's not fire.
no.
But
Mowing twice, 3 times, is that gonna knock the dogwoods back or?
if we get that onto a 3 to 5 year burning, it will.
Can't burn over there.
I've burnt that part 8 or 9 times in my career.
Hope we can do it again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of houses around there, a lot of complaints around there.
Yeah. The nice thing is we can, with the north wind, we can blow it on the school ground. And they've been very cooperative. I believe we have management staff now within the department that are supportive enough of land management efforts that we should be able to move back into some more of those active land management with y'all gentlemen's support as well.
Both those places also have sericea problem and overlooked stems.
Old world blue stem and sericea are both common in the recommended management practice right now is late season burn, which is middle of August and middle of September. I'm involved with a property that 3,000 acres in northern Chautauqua County that had incredible sericea encroachment and getting an old world blue stem. And in the areas that we burned 5 years in a row, we're at 98% control of sericea lacetiza. and a 70% reduction on the water system. So burning in the spring isn't always the answer.
Warren, is the goal for you to get support from the park board to restart burning, or what do you?
Both just land management in general. We do not have as large of a maintenance crew as we did 15 years ago.
Sure.
But in recognizing that land management is of value and land management is important, and as a major landholder within the city, it's good for our agency to set an example and support for not only, our division with all we do to support tree planting, tree growth, recreational opportunities, and all the other divisions of the department throughout the city. But land management is also an important part of what Gary and my division, as well as the department wide, for our goals need to be. Does that make sense?
Would, how does this go into recreation and everything else?
So one of the things it does for us is, like you mentioned, you can't mow it to maybe maintain it the way that it is in invasive species that you have in the area. So being able to burn it helps to control it better, then put as many resources onto it long-term to maintain it. Then it can be used for other sources for us throughout the department. The challenge that we run into is having the resources to be able to do it. And then, of course, the burn ban that we've had in place with concerns on whether we're able to manage it if it gets out of control.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we have to factor into it as we move forward. But it's an effective way to be able to do it where we don't type as many resources long-term to be able to maintain it.
And that's one of the things that we did during the late season burning, is we can staff those prescribed fires much lower. Because if you've ever been involved in spring prescribed fire, you light the fire, you spend the rest of the day trying to keep the word along, trying to put it out. That late season, green season burning, you spend most of your day trying to keep it going. And it's a whole lot less intense of a fire. It's low intensity, but you're still getting to that 142 degrees on your woody control. And it does wonders on the old world blue stems, specifically the Serratia lespedeza. And what we have noticed is after you get going on that fall burn, or that late summer, early fall burn, the wildflowers just go crazy the next few years. Your species diversity really increases.
So I guess, Nate, would an appropriate motion be to support the land management best practices?
I mean, I think so. That's more kind of up to you all. I don't think there's a binding action necessarily that can be taken, but yeah.
I imagine that's something that you guys can take to the council and.
Well, now it's probably more so just for information, so as we move forward.
So you don't need an action right now?
We don't need an action right now. It's just more so of what best practices and what he's seen from attending the conference. And I think the big piece on it is that he mentioned that he was the only person that's from a municipality that actually got invited out for that. So that said, it's a lot about what he's done here with the city and being able to manage that process, where other communities may not have someone who has that expertise.
Okay. Thank you, Warren, for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Okay. All right, Brandon, you are up, sir, with a finance update. All right.
All right, so this is gonna be for through November 30th, so we got one more month to go for the fiscal year. So as far as revenue goes, we're looking really strong. I don't know if we're gonna hit the budget goals for revenue this year, with just one more month going. But those budget numbers were increased from what we had at the beginning of the year, and then we did increase those goals. Just to give us a little more aspiration to something to shoot for. with our revised budget. As far as expenses go, we're looking again really strong. I really don't have with $3 million, $3.6 million in the general fund left. Boy, I don't think we're not gonna get close to that. So we're still looking really good for being under the budget by the close of the year. As far as recreation cost recovery goes, rec centers did increase by like a percentage point, especially parks increased some. Riverside Tennis Center went from 94% to 97% cost recovery overall. This is not just for the month, but that's for the year. So looking at about on par or better than last year. As far as golf goes, we're looking at good, strong revenue. For the golf department, I'll let Jesse talk about those when he does his grounds reports and everything, and go into more details with what he's saying. But as far as the expenditure side, again, going to be well under the budget amounts this year. So there really isn't any budget pressure. We may have to do a budget adjustment with some of our inventory numbers in golf, just because we're buying food and we're selling food. And we had, so I look at it the last couple of years, but people just keep coming in and buying food and exceeding what's kind of our expectations on that. So that's a good thing. Especially, I think we make 50% again. The revenues are about 50% more than what we're spending on food, and so we're really making that money back. And then the uncovered cash ending in October 31, it's like 1.82 million. Again, anything over that $1 million, it's going to be swept back into the equipment replacement fund. So we'll have some resources to play with next year. And a real strong cost recovery on the golf courses. Any questions? All right, thank you guys.
Wait, why are we under budget on expenses?
Why are we under budget on expenses?
Why are we, isn't that what you said, that we're not spending as much as we budgeted?
Right.
Is there a good, I mean, good for us, but.
Well, there's a couple of big ticket items on that one. Number one is we have open positions in forestry, and we're trying to get those filled, and that's part of it. The other big part of it is contractual mowing. We budgeted for fuel increases. Those fuel prices we didn't see that increase, and so those increases didn't kick in. But we also saw a decrease in mowing with the drought this year. So that's the two major reasons. That's the two major spots where we save money this year.
Another piece that we saw some saving in expenses, but it affected revenue as well, is remember we closed swimming pools earlier this summer as well, just because of water conservations. So you'll see a little bit dip in the cost recovery that's there in the revenue, but the expenses went down.
So make comparisons next year tougher, possibly.
Next year, you'll possibly, if we're able to open up further in the season, you'll see more expenses and revenue that goes on with this.
Well, and also moving into the budget season next, just because we didn't spend it doesn't mean that money goes away. So you won't necessarily see a major reduction in the budget. We are going to be having some pressure, I think, especially in the 2026, the general fund. So we will have options in our back pocket in order to make those wise decisions of budget cuts. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Reggie, do you have any communication updates for us?
Just some brief ones that I wanted to actually put out so everyone is aware of it. This past Friday, actually posted for the department director position that'll be open until the 10th of January. We also are getting ready to post for Brewer Community Center for their center director for that position coming up here shortly as well. So our goal is that Brewer is slated to open for the fall of next year. So we're planning to have someone on board by the spring time frame, so they'll have an opportunity to start preparing, planning, and getting a team on board to be able to open that facility up, running at full speed. So we're really excited about it. We got a lot of people inquiring about it, not only just locally, but outside of the area with some of the things that we're doing to make improvements. So looking forward to that process.
About the Brewer position?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. With the park director, did we hire an outside agency, or are we just internal staff?
From my understanding, we're just working directly with our our human resource department has actually done it. It's been posted on both the KRPA and the NRPA site that they're actually doing, and they're looking to continue to push for that time frame for the 10th to see what kind of applicants we get.
Okay, thank you. Europe.
Quick again about our social media update. These are the updated follower counts. The numbers are really similar to last month. Again, the winter is usually really slow for us in terms of our social media growth. We've got some spikes here and there from holiday events, but overall we just stay pretty steady. So for the Wichita Park and Recreation Facebook page, our top post last month was about the NCAA Fan Fest announcement that will be held at National Park in March. So that post reached 3,000 people total. There were 41 interactions on the post. The page overall was up 53% from the previous month. OJ Watson, the top post was a follow-up about the Tricks and Treats event on Halloween. They were sharing the festivities and the fun costumes that park goers came out wearing. That page overall was up 154%, so that was really our top winner overall between our pages. Again, just because OJ Watson hosts so many holiday events between their Halloween events and then the Christmas Express ramping up in November. That one tends to see a lot of traffic this time of year. The NASCAR Park page, an unfortunate top post was that we had to cancel one of our events due to an unexpected TV outage in the area. So they couldn't air the football game in the park around Thanksgiving. And then for Golf Wichita, the top post in terms of how far it reached was about hiring. There's some info here about the positions that they're hiring. That reached 2,700 people. But then I did also want to share that our top post in terms of how much it engaged the public was the Get the Green posts. So every Friday they had another picture where members had to guess which green was pictured. And so that saw 163 reactions just for one of those posts alone. And every single week when they did that contest, those were in the top 10 number of posts from November. So I think that's a pretty successful, fun little event they do. And that is all I have for you this month. I would stand for any questions.
Next one's Katie. All right. Thank you, Katie.
So just want to get some brief updates from Recreation on some of the things that we're doing. Of course, during the month of November, we were host site for several of the elections that were on site. So 4 of our rec centers were host sites for that. We continue to partner a lot with the community. We're doing different things that we did. We had a community event with Linwood Rec Center where we partnered with Humane Society to actually do chipping for pets in the community where they can actually come out and get that as a service provided free of charge. And one of the things about that is that it was a new ordinance that went in place to the city where it was required to have the chipping on it. So we were able to provide that as a resource to the community at no cost for those who may have had concerns with being able to afford that for their animals that they have and their pets in their home. We're still looking at ways that we can continue to expand to get the word out about things that we're doing at each of our centers. So we partner quite a bit, doing some things around some other topics in the community with Salvation Army, with continuing to offer the food distribution sites at several of our community facilities that we have throughout the city. We've been working quite a bit more with the police department with implementing some programs that we had in some of our parks in the community that's had some concerns with some of the behavior that's taking place there. So specifically out at Bridgeport that you guys are familiar with, that we have the partnership with ICT Forums where we're doing the planting and growing of the food there. We've had some challenges in that park with people being there after hours. So we're working with WPD and increasing presence there, as well as putting up some ballards and some gates and things to access the park there so we can make it more friendly and safe for people who are coming out to use it for its intended purposes. And heading into kind of leading into this month, starting this first week, we've been planning for is our Winter Wonderland event is happening this Friday. So we started working, planning for that down at Napshire, working real closely with Gary and his team with putting the lights and things that up there. And the big thing that we're excited about this year is that we're able to highlight our adaptive program that we're doing. We're going to have some families that are going to actually come out and light the actual treat for this year and spotlight that program and have one of our local TV personalities who's going to be the MC for the event. So always looking for ways that we can partner and do things to kind of raise awareness about programs and services that we have in the community. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Reggie. All right, Jesse. Oh, questions for Reggie? All right. There you go, sir.
You got it. It's right there. That's running out of, okay,
Hello. So we'll go over November. We'll do the rounds and financial report first. Remembering what I see what you're saying. Remembering what the month was weather-wise, we had a lot of much-needed rain the first week or 10 days, and then it got pretty cold. So it's as good as October was from a revenue standpoint. November was not that great, but we got the rain that we needed, so we'll take it. Looking at year-to-date, the number of rounds that we've done, we're about 9,000, just under 9,000 behind last year, which is once we opened tax back up, we kind of kept the pace. So no big surprises there. November alone, we were close. Even with the weather, we were about 275 rounds off of last year's pace at 9,000 total. And then looking at year-to-date car rentals, we have surpassed last year. We're at 374. So basically, we're about $1,000 up over last year. I'm not sure what that number on the bottom. I'm sorry about that. But we're about $1,000 over last year. So we've caught up and passed last year's revenue with car rentals. Food and beverage is almost dead even. Again, considering everything we've been through this year, pretty happy with that. The last quarter has been really good from a food and beverage standpoint as we've tried a lot of new things. Driving ranges continue, I mean, we're 43,000 up over last year at this point, but if you go back 2 years to 22, we're at $70,000 up over where we're at this point in 2022. So the improvements and the things we've done on the driving ranges really have paid off. Merchandise sales, we're up a little bit. A lot of that text. Again, I've said it many times. I was talking to him the other day to see what he contributed the increase this year. He said early on with the simulator, he said a lot more hard goods, gloves, being able to do fittings, and then he went with different vendors this year, different merchandise. So keeping it fresh, and we're going to have been meeting with the golf pros to have a little bit more input on what they're going to carry in the shops next year. Again, that's their money, but it's a reflection on us. So I think keeping different vendors, different products, keeping it fresh is a very good thing for us to make sure we're doing.
And then total revenue in November, we did 415,000. That was a little bit down from last year, again, just with the weather and everything. But altogether this year, we're still 135,000 up over where we were at last year. And keep saying it, but all things considered, I'm very, very happy with that. Looking at the project fund balances that we have, nothing really has changed since last year. The CART fund continues to actually increase even in the slower months. We'll have a little dip over the winter, and then that will continue to go up. So that's still doing very well. Equipment fund, everything, you can see we've got 1.25 million in projects at the end of this year. Depending on where the money ends up, we should put another 750,000 into this and still have $1 million in the general fund, golf fund. Okay, big month last month with the irrigation. We went through the RFP process. We did the interviews. We selected a vendor. I'm going to meet with them Thursday to do kind of the final negotiations over the design and exactly placement of the heads and everything, get that buttoned up. That will go to city council for final approval, I think, right at the first of the year, January 3rd, I think. And they should be able to start work hopefully in January, maybe February. So the goal is to get this project completely done by the true start of the off season. And once we get this going, I'm going to go ahead and start working on Max. We can have that ready to go fall, spring of next year. So this was huge. So. And then the thing I think I kind of teased last month, I couldn't really talk about it because it wasn't finalized, but we have a big event that we just signed. It's going to be at Auburn Hills in August of next year. It's a 4-day event. It's a Midwest Deaf Golfing Association, and this worked correctly. Okay, I'm not gonna do it here, but I'm just gonna go to the website. Basically, this is going to be about 120 golfers that come from around 26 different states is the estimate. Last year it was in Illinois. Next year, I believe it's in Ohio. They were looking at several different locations, and we met with them 3 or 4 times and worked with Visit Wichita to get the hotel portion of their done. So they'll be here for 5 days to practice around 4 days in the golf tournament. You know, of course, bring families and everybody from all over the place. Really big event. It's an honor to host this. There's a men's and a women's division. Just a really great event. This is kind of the stuff that when I came here, I really wanted to go after. We just needed to get some things in place. So bringing in these regional and eventually fully nationally tournaments, we have the resources to do it. We just need to go after them. So this is a good start. It's very exciting, and can't wait for August to be a part of this. All right, any questions?
That's an irrigation system at SIM. Is that being funded through the enterprise fund, or is that?
Kind of a mix. So it'd be done through GO1. We've got we packaged them all together. But one area consists of 1 course for the next 4 years. It's essentially 500,000, but from the CIP fund, put in for golf. 600,000 for park improvements, I believe is the category, and the rest will come from the golf fund. We'll have to pay back the balance essentially, and those payments will start in 2026 out of the golf fund. So we're really, you asked earlier why we're not using all of our expenses in the golf fund. Obviously, it's different that we don't lose those at the end of the year. So we're trying to build that to make sure we have the funds available once this gets going, and we're going to be in a really good spot. So it's kind of a mix, and we are looking at a rate increase that will go into effect that the city or council mandated to go into effect March 1st. So we have the golf board meeting next Tuesday to finalize what that's going to look like. But
A rate increase to the green fees or cart
green
fees?
fee, not cart fees, we just did that. So it'll be green fees and membership fees, small increase to both. And then the range ball right now, they're $8.50. We're looking at bumping that up to $9, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we get a lot of range balls. So that'll make a difference.
What's the expected revenue hike?
They wanted to make sure we had an increase of 200,000. We're looking to go above that 300, 350, because you never know weather, whatever. So we want to make sure that we're going to have them. And I mean, just our green fees alone, we do 85,000 paid green fees. So if we do a $3 increase, that's essentially over $200,000 just in that with a $3 increase. So it's not hard to get there. We just want to make sure we're doing it fair across the board. There's not one group that's taking the front.
Yeah, what's the climate like? I mean, Have we broached this with the public?
Yeah,
I
we sent out a survey. We have talked about this for a while. We're our fourth meeting deep into this conversation, so I won't get into too many details, but we've looked at a lot of different ideas. And all in all, it's been fairly positive. Anytime there's an increase, there's gonna be pushback. And I think as long as everyone can see the money going back into the system, that's the main thing I see. As long as we can see there are improvements being made, it's okay. So, yeah, we're trying to be as transparent and include feedback as much as possible in the process.
Yeah, I know it's a fight. I think a couple of years ago, we were talking about a 50-cent increase to $1 and it was knocked down, drag out, so.
And it will be, come closer to time.
Is option one looking like it's gonna be the?
Option one is, in the survey, was 65 to 35, 65.
That's the one I'm a little scared of that second one.
Yeah, and again, those are options that we put out just to get feedback. There were a lot of people that wanted us to throw that idea, that option two. So what he's talking about, we sent a survey. Option one was just straight increase across the board. Option two was a increase to everyone. Seniors did not get an increase, but they have restrictions on the weekends, so it's basically Monday through Friday. There are a lot of seniors that don't play on the weekends, so that's what they want. I'll be honest, as a golf board, we're kind of at a pretty split down the middle on which way they want. They are. I'm not. I'm just there to provide information.
Trying to figure out the team aspect that you're dealing with too. The leagues. That's going to be the tough one.
No, I'm going to get a lot more input on that this meeting.
Yeah.
Great questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Gary, you're up, sir.
Mouse moving.
Your brain uses
Yeah.
your brain. You're just got it like that.
My brain didn't work that way. All right, so forestry, when I say this, understand what I'm saying, wasn't really exciting this month, which is a really great thing. We had a lot fewer emergencies, even though we had just under 300, had a lot fewer emergencies. And if you think about the weather, we did have some rain and some storms early in the month, November, but for the most part, it's been pretty quiet. We've been able to get at our normal work, our tree removals, our high priority prunes, and that kind of thing. So we did get the Christmas lights installed at the tennis center, at Old Town Plaza, at NASCAR, and at Century 2. NASCAR took a lot more time than what we really budgeted for it, but I think it's going to look great. And so I definitely would encourage anyone to come out to the Winter Wonderland and see that. So never had lights not come on. So everybody cross your fingers, knock on some wood, whatever it is that you do. But that's going to be a pretty intense moment there for us. And then what we're scheduled to do, I mean, coming up in December is pretty routine. Our construction special projects group, as you know, these guys stay busy. That is a semi-truck load of EWF, that is engineered wood fiber. It's basically really expensive process mulch. We have to, in playgrounds and for play spaces that we have mulched areas, we have to provide this type of mulch as opposed to just random bagged mulch or stuff that we produce ourselves, because what we produce is going to generate a lot of splinters and injury and that kind of thing. So this is certified to not do that. So we have multiple piles of these around town where we are refreshing the surfacing on our playgrounds that have this type of surface. So we've done that at multiple parks. There's a list of parks there that we've worked on so far. The list of what is to be done is longer. think of this slide as the repair, remove, replace slide, but the guys have been busy getting shelter tops and the shade structures that are not snow load rated, getting those down before any snow can happen. So they've been pretty busy doing that, as well as other things here, graffiti, repairing signs, that kind of thing. This zip line replacement, that is something that has been on the docket for a long time. We've had some trouble getting parts for that, so I know that's, I'm going to put that on there because we're really excited to have that done. Getting a lot of requests from PD to install park closed signs, so it gives the hours, the ordinance number, that kind of thing, to help them be able to enforce people being there when they're not supposed to be there. 183 playground safety inspections. That was a little bit down from last month, but one of the reasons why is the gentleman that we've hired to focus on that spent several days this past month working in testing to get his official certification. So that was a part of the requirement of the job. He's been working on that. We won't know if he passed it for another 3 weeks or so, but I'm confident that he did. He's a pretty sharp guy. Did provide the snowmobiles to events, and forestry did use construction's help to get the trees set up at Old Town Plaza and NASCAR. There's some base, structural base issues that go along with setting those trees, and then getting a Santa sleigh from out of the storage plaza. A lot of things scheduled in December, and the first 2 items I believe are already complete. The story walk to Creek Park, that was a collaborative effort with a state agency, and then a couple of kiosks, some information kiosks with that. Reggie mentioned earlier the Bridgeport property, and that is going to be one of the places where we're doing some work with this group. We're going to be installing 80 bollards across the front side of that park, which would be on the east side of the street, the west side of the park. But between the parking lot and the street, we'll install bollards that you can't drive around. We'll install a gate for the entrance, and that way we can do a better job of controlling entry to that park. The park will still be open as a walk-in park. We're not closing the park by any stretch, but we are going to be controlling access because of the activity that's been going on there that is not favorable to the community. Let's see. Park maintenance, they've been busy. This picture is a bed that was installed last spring and is over by the keeper, I believe, and it just had to be refreshed, be redone, and even with the water restrictions, they were able to keep this going, and they chose plants that were drought tolerant and established, and so just a really successful project, I believe. Our internal maintenance crews, they got finished with the holiday lights they were in charge of. They're working on their winter lists. They're also doing quite a bit of work right now with some homeless gate cleanup, so helping to bridge the gap between contracts with our vendor and then also the new crew that's coming on. The positions are posted. We have to go through the hiring process. We're doing that as quickly as we can. But to keep up with the demand, we're diverting some of our normal winter work to keeping up with homeless cleanup. Lots of other things going on. Operates weed crews, they're cleaning up some of the medials that did get missed or not treated well enough. And so there's some
some escaped vegetation, as Warren puts it. And then our irrigation crew, they're just about done blowing out all the irrigation systems. So that should be wrapping up within the next week. Contracted maintenance is done for the year. We don't have any more mowing cycles. But we do retain some services from the vendors for litter control in some limited locations. And then also, we have contracts in place if snow and ice removal is needed for PD stations and some other select places. The mantis was down, and you saw a picture when Warren did his presentation, the picture of the mantis. I've been wanting you to see it. That was down most of November. It's up now, so it's back in use. It's amazing how a $50 part can take down I don't even want to tell you how expensive the machine is, but until you isolate exactly which part it is, it's still going to be down. Refuse crew, they're very busy. They've been held up a little bit with some warranty work on the track trucks, so that's just how it goes. Vandalism, graffiti, illegal dumping, all that is just increasing year over year. And then I've already touched on the homeless scam. So stand for any questions.
So Gary?
So are the open and close hours of those uniform from park to park, or is there a little bit of a difference? So I saw you doing that your F Street.
The large majority is uniform because it's based on the ordinance, right? So that, I believe, is midnight to 6 a.m. is closed according to the ordinance. If we have to expand that for some reason, there is some latitude with the director's discretion to do so for a specific reason at a specific park, and sometimes just for a specific time. So, but mostly it's just uniform. Good question.
Any idea why this illegal dumping is increasing?
I don't have any data. I do have opinions, but I don't think this is the right forum for my opinions.
Sorry about the question.
Well, I'd say trash pickup has become expensive. You're trying to have large things hauled away, mattresses, whatever else. I had one taken away. It was $100 to have that thing hauled away. I think getting trash picked up has gotten very expensive. So I think a lot of people have turned to using our park system because they don't want to pay the cost.
Parks, right of ways.
Yeah.
Empty lots.
Especially when we do neighborhood cleanups once a year.
Take for example, Heller's Park. We recently, we know that Heller's Park is a hotbed for illegal dumping. We transitions were good, so, and we had some available staff time that we could apply to that over, I think it was a 3 or 4 day period. It might have only been 3 days, but crew went up to remove the illegal dumping, and it was roofing material. It was mattresses. It was just general house trash. It was, just, you could see where a trailer just dumped whatever it was. We removed 9 tons of trash out of that park. Wow. And so we're looking at ways to mitigate access to that park with some additional bollards, through removing some of the invasive trees like we never talked about, some of the species that are not really beneficial for our ecology, but it hides that activity. So we're looking at a strategy to be sensitive to the need to keep trees, and then also the need to not create a visual barrier to make that kind of illegal activity as easy. So there are a lot of things going on there, but that is a prime example.
Gary? All right, Doug is not here, but Reggie, you've got a quick update for us from the Park Foundation?
Sure. So we had an opportunity this week, the last board meeting, Councilman Johnson and I attended, and did a presentation for the Dr. Glendale Dye project that we were doing there. And the park board did agree to be the fiduciary for us to use for funding for that project. So we're finalizing everything now to get the additional support from our legendary player that's here that's going to help with some fundraising and things forward, working on initial drawings for what that's going to look like with the renderings, and then going to do a big announcement here soon on rolling out that project and getting additional support for it.
Will you be able to present on that project January maybe to the board? I don't think, if I'm correct, I don't think it's public yet so much on what all is occurring, but.
We haven't officially put it out public as of yet, but we have gotten support that that's the direction that we're going to go in. There is some CIP dollars that are targeted to help with the project. And the goal is to try to fundraise as much as that, to use as little as the CIP that's designated as possible. We're working through one of our co-ops now to actually get a rendering of it that could be used for marketing material that's going to give an actual visual of it, well as a virtual tour what the facility could potentially look like. And that's going to be a major component of what we're looking at for helping with fundraising. And we've gotten a commitment from our champion that any donations that are over $1 million, he's going to officially make the ask for it to help us push that forward. So we're excited about that.
It's a community center there? Or
It's going to be
it's just bathroom and playground.
It's going to be a football complex that's there. That's going to have 8 football fields that are there that are turf, a championship field, turnaround area that's there. That's going to have a statue of the person who's going to be our champion, as well as making it a regional attraction that we can actually do programming here in the area. So there's not another facility that's like that here in the area. So we envision that's going to draw a lot of people from up and down the 35 corridor to come here for some of the activities that we envision taking place there, and also expanding what we're doing with the USD 259 partnership as well.
What's the budget on that?
So the goal is $20 million is what the fundraising goal is for the project.
How much CIP dollars will be
We
utilized?
have roughly about $2.5 million in CIP dollars that are earmarked that could help with the project. But the committee goal is to try to raise as much as that 20 million as we can from the support that we have and some of the partners that are willing to help with the effort.
Sounds like a design partners are already on board. If
We haven't secured a design partner at this point. We had someone who gave some initial renderings for it that we did just to have a general concept. We just went out to a co-op now with those initial plans to put something together for marketing purposes. As we get further along with the fundraising, then we'll engage someone who's actually going to do the design.
ASAP timeline, I mean, depends on the fundraising, of course.
The goal is to have majority of the fundraising and the final approval to council by end of next fiscal year, so that we could start groundbreaking and build to open hopefully by the 26th season.
Thank you, Reggie. I don't got an update. Do you got anything else for us?
Probably only other thing that's coming up, Gary mentioned to it earlier, that we're working on a couple of different things that are in the works. The hot team and us, as well as legal and housing, has been working on some adjustments to the ordinance related to homelessness and how that's being managed moving forward. The Parks Department is going to start managing the cleanup and storage of items for adults encampments now. We have been using a contractor that was providing that service, and we did some research from it to see how we can do it internally and maybe potentially some cost saving and some more efficiencies. And we were approved to council to move forward with hiring a 4-person crew and the associated equipment to be able to do it internally. We did go through council last week where we were able to do a contract with that went out for bid for a backup, just because, like Gary mentioned, we get more and more value of having to address it as a backup so that we can have them on an as-needed basis to be able to use this to help supplement what we're doing. So that's a big thing. It's going before council here with what that's going to look like and how we're going to manage it. And our goal is to have a crew in place by the 6th of January to start doing that internally. We've actually diverted some of our team now in the interim to be able to help manage some of that until we're able to get a full crew on board. But we think that as we roll it out, it's going to be something that's going to reduce that timeline on how we're actually managing it as a city. So part of that process was the hot team would actually notify it. The individuals will have between 42 and 72 hours when that notification that they would have to vacate the location. And then our contractor had up to 14 days before they actually removed it. So you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks before a potential encampment may be cleared out or cleaned. And with us being able to manage it internally, we're thinking that we'll be able to cut that time down quite significantly.
That's great. Well, thank you, Reggie. All right, Joel. Hope you have a happy holiday season. See you next year. I don't see you.
All right, thank you. I will, I know as we get.
You do.
The hiring for. So,
Yeah, let me know.
we're either here, like the big interview on the meeting.
How are you, Tom?
End up having.
Good to see you.
Sure. Have a great time.
Good to see you. Well,
Make a little
yeah.
in a row.
No,
I
Reggie.
think it's gonna be a hotbed, so we've definitely,
I was gonna say that.
relationships and things, we have someone basically coming in, being.
It's like he was just asked.
You could come in.
You get that.
I didn't have an answer for
Other
it.
meetings like, oh, they sort of.
You talk to them.
Supposed to, I think. I haven't,
Contractor
but
does
thank you.
bird trips down there.
to-
Some of us are working with them.
I was gonna say, I bet you they're.
You just got a little.
Reaching out to say, hey, we're interested.
Send this.
So I think we're gonna get it.
Please.
Excited for that, Reggie.
I know, I'm sorry.
How are you doing?
Like, even when we skipped over this time, I said, I was like, hey, I know for a fact there's someone here who would like to.
Oh, yeah, let me know. Let me know whatever you guys need.
As well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we're meeting in January
Yeah.
for the
Exactly.
complex,
But
but
yeah, if you want to do it that way, that works perfect
I just.
for us too.
At some point too.
Yeah.
We,
Thank you, I hope.
Ton of people up at your place for Thanksgiving?
Thankfully, I got to raid someone else's house for the day.
We'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you, Reggie.
Good to sit down and talk with you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want to
Yes,
pick your brain on some things. See if you can check with Miss Alice and see when we get something scheduled. They work at your schedule, my schedule. So as we're moving forward, we look at some of those projects that we're doing, so we can actually.
Okay.
Good. So Miss Alice, can you help make that happen?
Sure,
Brains.
Great.
sure, yeah.
Tell me when to show up, and I just so.
Hey, if you got somebody that can do that.
Yeah.